Hi, today I'd like to talk about the beast of Revelation. I'd like to talk about whether, like the preterists believe, it was Nero, Titus, or Israel. And a lot of people would say, how could it be Israel? But that's the main thing I'm going to be talking about. If you're a futurist, then you probably project the beast as being someone in the future that will come. But you should look into the preterist interpretation of end time or eschatology because it makes a whole lot more sense than looking for a beast when in Revelation at the very beginning it said that these are things that must shortly take place, and 2,000 years is not shortly. We know we get an idea of what God thinks is a long time in Daniel because God told Daniel to seal up the vision and the prophecy that was given to him. And it was at least 500 years before that was opened up. And so God thought it was 500 years was long enough to seal it up. But in Revelation, John was told not to seal his book because the time was at hand. And so that gives us an idea of what God thinks is a long time compared to what we perceive. All right, let's get into who the beast really was. Most people who are preterists, like myself, believe the beast was Nero or Titus. The problem with Nero is that he was dead before Revelation 19:19, where the beast was getting ready to make war against God and his army. This also is a problem for Titus being the beast because of the way that Revelation 19:19 is worded. It says, "And I saw the beast," Israelites, that's what they were, "and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him," which was Jesus, "that sat on the horse, and against his army," which was the Romans, because he was going to use them in judgment. Most people will not argue that the man on the horse was Jesus, because Revelation 19:11 through 16 leaves no doubt that it was Jesus on the horse. Now, Jesus' army was the Romans because his old bride had committed adultery, crucified him, and killed his saints and apostles. And now he was using the Roman armies to destroy his old bride and their city. Knowing this, when you read Revelation 19:19, it is obvious the beast and his armies were on one side, and Jesus and his armies, the Roman armies, were on the other side. There's no way to get around this. That means Jesus was not on the side that everyone in preterism pretty much had been saying for all these years. That means neither Nero nor Titus could have been the beast. In the next verse in Revelation 19:20, the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet, and they were cast alive into the lake of fire. Now Nero nor Titus were cast alive into the lake of fire. Nero committed suicide years before the war, and Titus died and was not cast alive into the lake of fire either. The Israelites that rejected Christ were the ones that were in the lake of fire, which was the fires of Jerusalem burning in 70 AD. In the Old Testament and in the New Testament, the prophets would prophesy to kings, false prophets, or prophecies, because they didn't want to hear the truth. In verse 20, the false prophet was Israel. In the Old Testament, the Gentiles were considered unclean and beast. In the New Testament, the Israelites that rejected Jesus and his new covenant, he divorced, and his new people were the Gentiles and the remnant of Jews that he spared. Now, it was his old bride that had become the beast. Revelation 19 is the beginning of the story of the wedding feast. God invites the fowls together unto the supper of the great God. In verse 17, God kills the remnant that rejected him, and the fowls were filled with the flesh, according to verse 21, What's interesting is that they dined on the flesh of kings, captains, and horses. According to Revelation 18, if this were future, then they would not be dining on kings. They would be dining on soldiers. Kings do not go to war literally. They send out soldiers to war. There are hardly any kings left in the world today. They would also, they also would not be dining on horses because we have tanks and vehicles now. Remember, futures, it cannot be symbolic because you believe that you are supposed to take Bible prophecy literally. Now, Ecclesiastic 3:16 through 19 is an example where the Israelites are referred to as beast. I'm going to have my sister help me. If you could scroll down for me. Let's see. Titus 1:10 through 16 and Jude 1 through 19 is another good example where they're called beast. Titus 1:10, 16 through 10, Jude 1:19 and 1. There's lots of them. You can click on the link that I'm going to provide with this video and read this. And now I'm going to go to my next subject, which is it's about the hills, the 7 hills. People bring this up a lot. You know how Revelation 17:9 talks about the 7 hills, and most people say, oh, that's talking about the 7 hills in Rome. Well, strange as it may seem, the city of Jerusalem, as it existed in the time of Christ, Jesus, was also reckoned to be the city of 7 hills. This fact was well recognized in Jewish circles. In the Perk de Rabbi Eleazar on the 8th century Midrashic narrative, section 10, the writer mentioned without commentary, showing that the understanding was well known and required no defense, that Jerusalem is situated on 7 hills, recorded in the Book of Legends, edited by Biliak and Ravaninsky, page 371, paragraph 111. And so it was. Those 7 hills are easy to identify. If one starts with the Mount of Olives, just on the east of the main city of Jerusalem, but still reckoned to be located within the environs of Jerusalem, there are 3 summits to that Mount of Olives. Now, number 1, there's the northern summit hills, or hill, is called Scorpus, Hill 1. The middle summit hill was called Nob, Hill 2. The highest point of the Olivet itself and the southern summit hill was called in the Holy Scripture the Mount of Corruption or Mount of Offense. That's Hill 3. On the middle ridge between Kedron and Tyropean valleys, there was formerly in the south Mount Zion, Hill 4, the original Mount Zion, and not the later southwest hill that was later called by the name, the Ophel Mount, Hill 5. Will you scroll down just a little, Holly? Number 6. See. The north of that, the rock around which Fort Antonia was built, is Hill 6. And 7, and finally, there was the southwest hill itself, Hill 7, that finally became known in the time of Simon of Hasmonean as the new Mount Zion. This makes 7 hills in all. And you can look it up. You can Google the 7 hills of Jerusalem or mountains, and it actually shows pictures of them. And they were known back during that time as the city of 7 hills. And so, and this is I've read this in multiple things. I'm not saying that Rome didn't have hills, but God was never married to Rome. He was married to Israel. All right, now I'm going to go over some glossary of terms. This is in an article written by Adam Marschalk. I couldn't recommend his website any more than what I already do. He's brilliant when it comes to knowing who the beast of Revelation was, the man of sin, everything like that, you can go to Adam, and his last name is Mars Chalk, which is Maars Chalk, period, com. And just type in the beast, and you'll find his website. But I will try to attach a link so you can click on it. At the very end of that particular website, on the Beast of Revelation, is the Glossary of Terms. Now, this is kind of like just a summary of everything he talks about, and exactly who the beast was, the beast from the land, all that. Well, the beast was Judea, Israel, and later Zealot-led Israel, referenced in Daniel 2, 7, Revelation 11, 13 through 17, and 19 through 20. A beast from the land was the false prophets, collectively, who worked with and on behalf of the zealot Sicarii. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. This beast was later called the false prophet, referenced in Revelation 13, 11 through 17, 16, verse 13, 19, verse 20, and 20, verse 10. Now the 10 horns, initially 10 Jewish generals, chosen to lead Israel's war effort, wars 2, period 20, 3 through 4. Now soon after the Jews' surprising victory over Cestius Gallus in November of AD 33, wars 2, 19, later some of them were replaced as the Zealots pleased, wars 4, period 4, period 1, referenced in Daniel 7:7, verse 20, 7:7, and 20, verse 24, and Revelation 13:1, 17, verse 3, 7, 12, 14, and 16 through 17. Now 3 horns fell. That would be Ananias, Ben Ananias. Number 2, Niger of Perea. Number 3, Joseph ben Goran. Deaths recorded in Wars 4, period 5, period 2, and Wars 4, period 6, period 1, referenced in Daniel 7:8, 20, and 24. A little horn, most likely Eleazar ben Simon, zealot leader from late AD 66 until April 70, whose headquarters was the temple, including the inner court. This person came up among the 10 horns, plucked out 3 of the first horns, had a mouth speaking pompous words, made war against the saints, was different than other 10 horns, would intend to change times and the law, and prevailed against the saints for 3.5 years until the coming of the Ancient of Days and the possession of the kingdom by the saints, referenced in Daniel 7, verse 8 and 11, 20 through 22, and 24 through 27. Now the 7 heads, the family dynasty of Hezekiah the Zealot, killed in 47 BC, who Josephus called the head of the robbers, wars 1, period, 10, period, or comma, 5, included Judas the Galilean, Acts 5:35 through 37. His 3 sons, his grandson Menahem and Eleazar ben Jarius, now Menahem's cousin, who led the final rebel holdout at Masada until AD 73, referenced in Revelation 13:1 and 3, 17:3 and 7, and 9 through 11. Now the wounded head, Menahem the 7th head, who only continued a short time, Revelation 17:10. In late August AD 66, he raided Herod's armory at Masada, returned to Jerusalem in the state of a king, became the leader of the sedition, wars 2, 17, 18, 8, led the massacre of the Roman garrison at Jerusalem, Antonia Fortress, and was killed a month later. Menahem is recognized as a messianic figure. His sudden death was a great blow to the zealot because he was their top leader, and it happened so soon after the war began, referenced in Revelation 13:3 and verse 12. The deadly wound healed. Now, 2 months after Menahem's death, the Zealots defeated the armies of Cestius Gallus, and their followers rejoiced and came to believe they could defeat Rome. Another messianic figure, Simon Bar Garros, emerged as a hero of that war, became king, Wars 4:9, 4. Took possession of Jerusalem, Wars 4:9, 12. Wars 5:7, 3, and was the general of the war, Wars 7:5, 1-7, referenced in Revelation 13, verse 3 and 12. The saints persecuted for 42 months. Approximately late fall AD 66 and spring of AD 70, this persecution was carried out and or supervised by the little horn up until the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom, referenced in Daniel 7:21-27 and Revelation 13:5-7. No one may buy or sell. The Zealots minted their own coins beginning in AD 66 to represent their independence from Rome and discontinued the use of other coins in Jerusalem. At Masada, 60 miles away, and perhaps elsewhere, some were labeled for the redemption of Zion, referenced in Revelation 13:17. Now, the two witnesses, Ananias ben Ananias, excuse me, and Jesus ben Gamaliel, two former high priests who led a peace movement in opposition to the Zealots until they were killed during the Zealot temple siege on March AD 68. They had the mastery over those who opposed them until the time came for them to be killed. Their bodies remained unburied in the streets of Jerusalem. They were killed the day after a great earthquake. Their armies rejoiced over the deaths referenced in Revelation 11:3-13. Now, for more detailed study on the beast of Revelation, please see Adam Marschalk's series titled The Beast of Revelation Was Zealot-led Israel. So he has a website, Pursuing Truth, and AdamMarschalk.com. He's also on Facebook, and he has one video out explaining the beast of Revelation. That was in a Long Island conference. But he's the one I've known for years that it was Israel that was the beast. Rome was not the beast. Rome was never married to God. Israel was. Israel was the harlot. Israel, the whore, the beast, the false prophet. It's all talking about Israel, and if you really think about it, Revelation to me 19:19 was where I could not get past it. I want you to think about it. If the beast of Revelation was Rome, that means that Jesus in Revelation 19:90 was paired up with the beast. But he wasn't, because when God uses an army to judge another army, when God judges a nation using an army, he calls whatever army that is his army. Like I believe in the Old Testament, he called Egypt his army and Babylon his army during different times they were against God's people because he was using them for judgment. Same thing here. He's using Rome to judge Israel. And Israel was the beast because it's on the opposite side of Jesus. Now, how can you get around that? I don't see how you can. And besides, Caesar is just that, a Caesar. He's not a king. He's not a prince. Like some people have tried to talk about him being a prince. He is a Caesar. That's what they're called. I would like to see somebody show me one thing that any of them were ever called kings or princes or anything like that. But then again, Jesus was a prince. Jesus is the prince in Daniel. When he's talking about the prince, going against the city of Israel. It's not talking about Titus. Titus was who God used. All right, I'll stop here for today. I think I've given you enough food for thought. Now I need to figure out how to put the website links below, but hopefully I can do that. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you food for thought. Also, if you're on Facebook, look me up. My name is Thracia, Thracia. My last name is Garst, Gharst. And I started a preterist group, and it's called the Preterist and Futurist Debate and Discussion. And if you'd like to join that group, as long as you answer the questions correctly, we usually add you. And you might enjoy asking questions or asking people in the group questions, because not all of us have the same answer. Some know some answers, some don't know the others, some are still studying, but we help each other out. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm doing this from my bed, I was paralyzed years ago, my hands too. But my sister helps me, and I'm able to do these videos and have time to study, and hopefully that helps people. All right, well, God bless everybody.